In this video, I'm just going to wrap up and give my final comments in relation to this whole issue of orientation, which way your room and the window of your room should face if you're getting a room here in Bangkok or Thailand. Now, this advice applies all through Thailand, and it even applies if you're on the same latitude anywhere around the world in the tropics in the northern hemisphere, and it probably even applies in the southern hemisphere in the tropics, but the comments for north and south is reversed because you're in the southern hemisphere. Okay, I've got a couple of posts about this already, the subject of orientation, a couple of videos I should say, and a couple of posts on my Facebook pages. Check out my Facebook pages. I'll put links in the pinned comment to this video. Because I do far more work on Facebook. I write detailed articles and posts. These videos are just the tip of the iceberg of the work I do because they're just a hobby to make a couple of videos every now and then. But most of my work is on detailed articles with photographs and articles that I post on my Facebook pages and groups and so forth. And the other thing is, this will also won't apply if you have three things shade in the sun. There are basically three things. If you have tall buildings, then of course this advice won't apply. Tall buildings blocking the sun, plenty of trees blocking the sun, or a very large kick-ass sort of eaves roof overhang blocking the sun, or external devices you can put down to block the sun. So those three things, if you can block the sun, then this video won't really apply. It really applies if you have open sky and you've got the sun out there. Okay, so the basic summary is north is perhaps the best direction to face, because even in midsummer, which is June the 21st, the summer solstice in the northern hemisphere, the sun will, and we're in the northern hemisphere, the sun will never get down to a low enough angle to really beat into your room, especially if you have a decent sort of or reasonable roof or eave overhang. Okay, so north's the best overall. My last condo faced north. It was a long, large room, and it was a bit dark in there, so that's one slight disadvantage, being a bit dark and no sun. But as far as being cool or cooler, north is overall the best. Now for east and west, generally you want to avoid east or west because the sun is coming right down to the horizon and it's going to beat into your room. If I was forced to choose, I would choose east over west because the mornings might be a bit cooler. Now this room faces east and I'm getting the sun coming in. That's where I've got the experience to make this. That's why I'm making these videos, because I've experienced everything I say. And this room is hotter because I've got the room beaten in. Having said that, there are some advantages to having sun. Some sun in the mornings. You can dry your clothes, use less electricity. There might be, you can wake up better in the mornings. You might have a better psychological outlook as well, with a more light, airy sort of room with sun coming in. So there are some reasons why you want some sun, and east is the best because the afternoons are very hot, and when the sun's setting, the afternoon sun blasting in the west, I think you want to avoid that. The other thing is, in the wet season, the east is good too because you quite often only get sun in the mornings during the wet season. By the afternoons, the clouds and the rain rolls in, so if you've got washing to dry to hang out and so forth, the east is good. And that's another thing for facing west. In the wet season, you may not get as much sun that I fear facing west, because anywhere from April, May, not April, sorry, May, June, right through to September, October is the wet season in Thailand, especially the Bangkok central area. And you'll get the rains and clouds coming in the afternoon, so you may get more shade and not as much sun anyway. But if you have sun, it's going to be very hot afternoon sun, especially the dry season when there's more sun, less clouds and rain, and the hot dry season in March, April, and potentially May before the rain start. You might get more sun coming in, so that's east and west covered. Avoid east and west generally, but with those few caveats that I just mentioned. Some sun in the mornings might be good, and the wet season you may not get as much sun because of clouds in the afternoons anyway. So in the south it's a bit more complicated as well. Excuse me. If you're facing south, anywhere from April to around September, you're going to be okay because the sun's going to be either at a high angle or north of you. But if you're facing south in the December, January time, that's when the sun is going in the southern hemisphere, you know, the summer solstice in the southern hemisphere, and the sun's going to be at the lowest angle. In Thailand, the sun is at its lowest angle in the December-January time frame. Maybe from November to February, just depends on how much of a roof overhang you have above your window. Okay, so November, February, but definitely December, January, the sun's going to be at a low angle, and there's a surprising amount of sun that can beat onto a south-facing wall or window. Okay, so that's south. So, like I said, this applies to Bangkok in between two extremes. I'll just explain the two extremes. Now, in Bangkok happens to be in the centre of Thailand, so it's like an average. Those dates and months that I quote would apply all through Thailand, but the two extremes are if you're in the far north of Thailand, with a south-facing window in the December-January time, that's when the sun's going to be at its lowest. The other extreme is if you're in the extreme south, or southern Thailand, with a north-facing window in the June-July period, that's when the sun might be at a lower angle. So between those two extremes, those dates and months apply, thereabouts, approximate months. And of course Bangkok's halfway central anyway, so they're the two extremes. So that's pretty much it. That's the complete summary for orientation of your room. One last quick point is that facing south, in the wet season quite often you might have like the rains and storms come in, and there's quite often a refreshing breeze coming in with those storms. If you face north, you won't get those breezes coming into your room, but at my last condo I faced north, no sun but no wind. Whenever I went to the stairwell and walked down, there was a south facing window and there was quite often a nice breeze coming in. So that's one other advantage to facing south during the wet season. So south in fact may be the best in the wet season. From April right through to September, thereabouts, the sun's going to be at a high angle like I said, or facing north, or north of you, and then you might have that wind coming in, so you won't have sun and you might have that breeze. But be careful, because in the dry season, especially the hot season, come March, April, before the rain start, that breeze with the storms may become a hot, dry wind coming into your room, so be careful about that. So there it is, one quick wrap up. North, you won't get sun, so that might be the best. East and west avoid, but east has some sun in the mornings, which has advantages. West you might have rains and clouds anyway, and south from March, April to September, October, you won't have sun, but you might have that cool season, rainy season sort of breeze coming in. But December, January time facing south, you may have more sun beating onto that south facing window. So that's the very basics for orientation, north, south, east or west. I hope that makes sense, and I'll see you next time.